welcome. So happy to have you here. So today we are going to be talking about the order that you are working on things. Now, this is a great topic if you have tried things with feeding therapy before, if you have maybe seen some stuff on social media and you've tried to undertake it yourself, and you haven't had much success, it might be that you've been doing things out of order, right? So, we're going to talk about that today. And if you are new to my work, you can visit us at foodologyfeeding.com, or if you want to learn more about our Unlocking Mealtimes program, you can go to unlockingmealtimes.com. It has its own website now. That's just our program about how we get our super problem feeders to like food, right? We give you a really in-depth analysis and a roadmap of what is going on, how to get to the end goal. And then we do our ongoing monthly coaching calls with you one-to-one so that we know that you're staying on track, you're completing your lessons, and you're learning and you're implementing and you're seeing progress. So let's just dive right into this topic. So this is actually, this came up actually in one of my parent coaching sessions. And because the dad got on and he was saying, well, if the oral motor is the issue, why are we working on the sensory? And why are we doing all of the food play first? Like, shouldn't we work on the oral motor stuff first? And I said, yes, I do know that that was part of the issue, but the primary issue is that your son doesn't want anything in his mouth, and he is afraid to put anything in his mouth, right? Even things like a toothbrush, right? So it's not the primary focus now is not oral motor. It will be once he's flexible and comfortable putting things in his mouth, but we have to get past that fear first. We have to change his mindset about food first and his attitude towards food first. Because if we do not have that, how are we practicing oral motor? What are we going to put in his mouth? He's not using food as a tool. He's not using even things like a toothbrush as a tool, right? So that's our focus, is changing his mindset first. And sometimes there's other foundational type issues. Like there might be, some sensory sensitivities, or there might be, like a clear event that happened that might have influenced, their perceptions of food. And we might have to sort of work through that first, or we might have to target gut stuff first, right? We just did an evaluation where I said, before we even come to see you, I want you to schedule a gut test, because I do not see any progress happening until we start to sort this gut thing out first. And once we do that, then I think with our, helping to desensitize, we can change her mindset. But if food is uncomfortable for her, she's never going to override that and somehow learn to love food if it's always making her feel sick when she put food in her belly, right? So there are some order of operations. And I think the issue sometimes is if you go and you get an evaluation and they don't cover or mention things like, are they evaluating stuff that maybe is some red flags for gut, maybe is some red flags for oral motor, right? They might just be doing a very cursory look and saying, oh yeah, your mouth looks good. You got oral motor skills are good, but really there's food all over the place, and they only eat soft food. So like, I know that there is some oral motor stuff, right? You can't only eat soft foods and not have any sort of muscle weakness, right? So I'm sure there's some there. But the point is, no matter what the issues are, we have to take the ones that are the biggest and most glaring and take care of them first. And like I said, if gut wasn't an issue, maybe another thing is a bigger issue, right? Maybe the sensory is super big issue for this child and they can't, look at food without throwing up or something, it really does depend on that assessment and your child's system, right? So I can't tell you in this video exactly what the order should be because it's going to be a little bit different for every child, obviously, right? But if your end goal is that they're eating vegetables, you might achieve that through starting at a place you didn't expect, right? So, it might be, like I said, it could be that gut, it could be the mindset stuff first. Very often it is a lot of mindset stuff first anyway, which sometimes is completely overlooked by a lot of professionals, just because they don't have any training in it for no other reason, right? So they might start at another point in time. They might start, well, I guess we should get them to touch food and lick food and smell food. And, they just sort of follow some sort of an arbitrary like chart or guideline, but maybe that child might not be ready for that at all, right? So we want a really strong foundation. We want to be doing it in the right order for your child, because that, I think, is the best way to see success. So when we skip steps or we rush to introduce foods without, getting to that underlying issues that led to that resistance, then I don't think we're going to see much progress. And I think that can really delay or hinder, what you're seeing in your child's therapy room, right? So sometimes you might expect to do things like touching before eating, right? But there might be some other steps in there. And like I said, it might be not even within the sensory. It might be mindset. It might be that trust. It might be that connection, and it might be the gut. It might be some oral motor skills. And it could be any combination, right? So it's just something to think about. Like, well, where did we start with this journey, and were we starting in the right place? Or maybe we have missed a piece of this puzzle and we need to start a little bit further back. Because and I had spoken to another parent recently who is telling me, they've been feeding therapy for 3 years and nothing has changed. They haven't seen any progress. So they're wondering what we're going to do differently. And I said, well, what were they doing? Like, what was the feeding therapy? And she was like, well, I don't know. They were trying to get her to touch things, trying to get her to smell things. And I was like, I think that was actually way too high of a skill. I think we have to start much further back, and you never address the gut stuff. So addressing that and starting back at the actual beginning, I think will be really helpful. And I think we have to earn her trust, because, things like sneaking in food on the side of her mouth when she's not looking is not going to build that trust. So we have to take it all the way back to the very beginning for this girl. And, because I think they started a little too high for her. But I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, we're going backwards, because actually that's going to help you go forwards much faster because you're starting at the appropriate spot. It's like, imagine if you were going skiing and the instructor took you to like the steepest, like double black diamond first. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to ski again. This is way too hard. But if they took you to the little bunny hill where, the kindergartners were doing a good job and you can probably handle it, you're going to have a better experience and you'll probably gain confidence faster. You'll probably enjoy it more. And if you're confident and you're having fun, then you're going to make progress faster, right? Versus if you start too high with something and you just, all it does is stresses you out and you don't understand it and you're confused and you're scared, all it's going to do is shut you down, right? So sometimes starting way back might sound like you're going backwards, but you might propel forwards much faster. So don't always think of that as a bad thing. I actually think, oh my gosh, finally, you've got the right combination here, and we know exactly what to do, where to go, right? So now you can finally make progress instead of just hitting a brick wall for years and years, right? That's not helping you or your child. So, so that's why the importance of the order is really, really key, and how if we don't go in the right order, it can make us take much more time than is necessary, I think. Remember the skiing analogy. I think that will help make it clearer, because for you, it might seem obvious you want to get them to touch and smell it, but like if that's too hard, we want to start way back down where they're super comfortable if we want to have success. Otherwise, they are just going to shut down, which I bet is what's been happening. So, so that's why we work on things in a very specific order. And I can't tell you what the order is because every child has a slightly different order. But in our program, I tell you what to focus on. So, right, I have all of these lessons across all of the different areas, but I say, okay, but next week I want you to watch this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, because that is what you need to learn and focus on right now. Don't worry about the other stuff because that will come later. Focus on this because we want to see progress. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. If you want to learn more about that program, again, it's unlockingmealtimes.com. You can learn more tips on, of course, my other podcast episodes, our website, foodologyfeeding.com, on Instagram, and on YouTube. So we hope to see you there, and we'll also see you again next week. Have a good week, guys.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.